My name is Austin. I work as a truck driver in Siberia, transporting goods from one place to another. While many believe Siberia is entirely uninhabitable, that's not true. There are areas where people live, even though the temperatures often range between minus 10 degrees Celsius to minus 15 degrees Celsius. I live in one such place, accustomed to the harsh cold and the risks that come with my profession. It was February, and I had just received an order to deliver goods to a town several hours away. Typically, I preferred having someone accompany me on these trips because getting stranded in the snow or falling ill could be disastrous. This time, I took Derek, a friend and co-worker, along for the journey. Before we left, I warned him the trip might take 3 to 4 days. The day we started, light snow was falling, and we were optimistic about completing the journey without much trouble. However, as the day turned to night, the snowfall grew heavier. Soon, it became evident that if the snow didn't stop, the main road would become completely impassable, and that's exactly what happened. After a few hours, the road ahead was blocked, and we were advised to stay put until morning. But I wasn't the kind of person to wait around. I knew an alternate route through a forested area, a narrow winding road that descended steeply but eventually led to our destination. The road had a reputation. Locals claimed it was haunted, with stories of wild animals and strange entities. Harassing travelers, ignoring the warnings, I convinced Jacob, and we decided to take the risk. As we drove through the snow-covered path, we drank to keep warm, a questionable decision, but one many drivers in Siberia make under these conditions. The deeper we went, the more we realized this wasn't going to be an easy ride. The truck's heater suddenly stopped working, and worse, the GPS failed. I wasn't too concerned, as I was familiar with these roads, or so I thought. Hours passed, and we found ourselves in an area completely devoid of any signs of civilization. It was around 3 a.m., and we were desperate to find shelter, anything to get out of the freezing cold. That's when I noticed something ahead on the road. At first, it looked like a figure, walking in the distance about 50 to 60 feet away. As I drove closer, the headlights revealed more detail. A woman, naked, walking slowly in the middle of the icy road in minus 10 degrees Celsius weather. It was impossible for someone to survive like that. I honked the horn repeatedly, but she didn't respond or move aside. Frustrated, I stopped the truck, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out into the freezing night. Jacob stayed inside, hesitant to follow. As I approached her, she suddenly stopped walking. Then she turned around. My breath got in my throat. Her face was swollen, gross teeth with large pus-filled boils covering her skin. Dark circles surrounded her hollow eyes, and she looked like she had endured unimaginable torment. For a moment, we stared at each other, the beam of my flashlight shaking in my trembling hands. And then, without warning, she darted off the road into the deep snow, disappearing into the forest. I stood there stunned, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. It wasn't natural. It wasn't human. Shaken, I climbed back into the truck and started driving again, determined to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever that was. But the relief was short-lived. 15 minutes later, there she was again, the same woman, walking in the middle of the road, exactly as before. This time, I didn't stop. I decided to speed up and swear around her. But as I attempted to pass her, she suddenly lunged toward the truck as if she wanted to throw herself under the wheels. I floored the gas pedal, refusing to stop. I felt the impact as the truck went over her, the tires jolting as they hit something solid. My heart pounded as I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see her body lying in the road. But there was nothing. The road was empty. At that point, I didn't care about the delivery or the truck. I just wanted to get out of that cursed place. My only focus was driving as fast as I could, praying I wouldn't see her again, and I didn't. But to this day, I still see her face in my nightmares. That frozen, sullen face, staring right into my soul. My name is Edward, and I'm a truck driver. The company I work for specializes in transporting goods through some of the most treacherous routes imaginable. These paths often cut through dense forest, deserted stretches, and now covered terrains, but the pay was worth it. So much so that I couldn't turn it down. With bills piling up, I needed the money. I wasn't alone in my journey, though Jason, a young and adventurous assistant, was assigned to accompany me on every trip. Over time, we'd formed a good team, sharing countless stories and challenges on the road. This story happened one winter during December's bone-chilling cold. The company gave us a critical assignment to deliver supplies to an oil refinery in Alaska. Through the infamous Dalton Highway, it was a route neither Jason nor I had traveled before. The task was urgent as Christmas was approaching and delays would cost the company millions. I was chosen for the job because of my experience navigating through hazardous terrains, but even I knew that driving this route in winter was no small feat. The journey started like any other. Jason and I packed all essential prepared emergency kits and made sure the truck was in top condition. Jason was unusually excited, treating this as a grand adventure. I, on the other hand, was worried knowing what lay ahead. As we entered Dalton Highway, the weather turned ominous. The snow began to fall lightly at first, painting the surrounding trees and mountains in a serene white blanket. But soon the snowfall grew heavier. The road, already slippery, started to vanish beneath a growing layer of ice. The isolation was suffocating. Only a few scattered vehicles passed us, their headlights quickly swallowed by the thickening fog. By evening, the silence was deafening. We munched on some snacks to keep warm, our eyes glued to the road. The truck's heater was running, but the cold still crept in. Jason seemed uneasy. He kept glancing out the window and asked repeatedly, "Are we sure we're on the right path?" "Yes," I assured him. Though deep down, I wasn't really certain myself. The GPS signal was starting to flicker, and I could feel the truck struggling against the icy road. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel as the storm outside intensified. Suddenly, the GPS went offline. We were alone, completely cut off from the world. The snowstorm had now transformed into a full-blown blizzard. Visibility dropped to near zero. I tried to keep calm for Jason's sake, but the anxiety was clawing at me. Every mile felt like an eternity. Out of nowhere, Jason shouted, "Stop the truck! What's that over there?" I squinted through the fogged windshield and saw faint lights in the distance. They looked like they belonged to a small village, with no other option and fearing we might freeze to death. If we stayed on the highway, I decided to take the narrow snow-covered road that led towards lights. The path wound through dense towering trees. As we got closer, the lights became clearer. It was a cluster of small old wooden houses. The village seemed eerily quiet, almost abandoned. No sounds of people, no movement. Just the occasional howl of the wind. Jason and I exchanged uneasy glances. Something about this place felt off. We parked the truck near one of the houses. The headlight illuminated the scene. Broken fences, overgrown shrubs, and snow-covered rooftops. As we stepped out to investigate, a sudden noise broke the silence. It was barking, loud, ferocious barking. A pack of wild dogs emerged from the shadows, their glowing red eyes fixed on us. They surrounded the truck, snarling and baring their teeth. Jason froze, his face pale with fear. I grabbed my flashlight, trying to scare them off, but they didn't budge. Their growls grew louder, echoing in the darkness. Suddenly, I heard something else, a faint rustling sound. It was coming from the trees behind us. I whipped the flashlight around, but there was nothing there. Just as I was about to turn back, I caught a glimpse of it. A shadow. It moved quickly, darting between the trees. My heart raced. "Jason, get back in the truck," I yelled. We scrambled back inside, slamming the doors shut. The dogs were still circling, their claws scraping against the truck's sides. And then came the banging. It started at the back of the truck, heavy thuds like someone or something was hitting it with enormous force. Jason was trembling now, clutching my arm. "What is that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the noise. I didn't have an answer. The shadow appeared again, this time darting in front of the truck. It was too fast, unnatural. Jason screamed as the figure vanished into the darkness once more. I tried to start the truck, but the engine sputtered. The banging grew louder, closer. If whatever was out there wanted to get inside, my mind raced. Was it a person, an animal, something else entirely? The dogs suddenly stopped barking. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. And then we saw it. The shadow wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the truck. Jason and I both froze. Unable to move or even scream, the figure loomed between us, a dark, faceless entity that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its presence was suffocating. Its gaze, or whatever passed for its gaze, locked on us. I don't remember much after that, just the sound of Jason's scream and the sensation of falling. When I woke up, it was daylight. The truck was parked back on the highway. The storm long gone. Jason was gone. To this day, I have no idea what happened that night. The company found the truck and the cargo intact, but there was no trace of Jason. The village, the dogs, the shadow, they were all gone, as if they never existed. I still drive trucks for a living, but I'll never set foot on Dalton Highway again. And if you ever find yourself driving through a snowstorm, alone in the middle of nowhere, don't stop for the lights.